God, Country, Notre Dame. Not just a lofty motto etched in stone at the Basilica, a Notre Dame tradition of military service that runs deep. From Father Corby's chaplain duties in the Civil War, to the Navy taking over the campus in World War II for officers' training, many sons and daughters of Notre Dame have and continue to serve around the globe. Several members of Notre Dame's 1966 National Championship football team went on to serve in the military. Defensive linebacker Ron Jeziorski became a Marine officer after graduating in 1967. By the fall of 1968, he was playing defense again, this time on a remote hilltop in Vietnam near the DMZ, where he was wounded 3 times in a single day and awarded 3 Purple Hearts. After the Marines, he earned a PhD in psychology while coaching football and wrote about the importance of sports in developing the leadership skills he learned at Notre Dame, playing for Coach Ara Parsegian. His teammate Mike Bergner, class of 68, classmate Paul Ferguson, class of 67, and his son, Jeff Jeziorski, reflect on his service this Veterans Day. I'm correspondent and former Marine Captain Mike Saray, class of 69, for this edition of God, Country, Notre Dame. Welcome to the family and classmates of Ron Jeziorski for this Veterans Day tribute. Let's start with Jeff. You got the right shirt on today. You're his only son. And we have Mike Bergner, class of 68, also a teammate of his on the Championship 66 team and a Marine veteran. And we have Paul Ferguson, class of 67, a classmate and a U.S. Army veteran. Gentlemen, thank you for sharing your thoughts on Ron Jeziorski. Let's start with Jeff. Behind you, there's almost like a memorial for all the things he accomplished in his life. Give us a quick synopsis of all the many facets of Ron Jeziorski.
Yeah, I mean, we could go on forever, as you guys know, as he liked to tell a story as well. But why don't I start from the beginning, give you a little bit of color. So my dad, Ronald Jeziorski, Ron or Ronnie, he wasn't just a Notre Dame man. He was actually, raised by Notre Dame. Spent all his childhood in South Bend. And, I say more or less the South Bend community helped raise him. He grew up in a tough home. His mom worked long hours as a waitress at the Linebacker restaurant, which is still standing today and is probably still as active as it was then. But that gave him a deep connection to the community and the working people of South Bend, and everyone in town seemed to know him. He always said his family was his friend. So he found family and his teammates and friends from Holy Cross Grade School, where he entered in 2nd grade, all the way through St. Joe's, which is across the street from the university at the time. He was a standout football and basketball player, and he built his name just not through talent, but through loyalty and toughness. And by the time he played at the university from 1964 through 1966, he was part of what South Bend Tribune called the finest football class to attend Notre Dame. And he appeared in the paper dozens of times. And on Ara Parsegian's 1966 national championship team, he stood at the center of something historic. But in the middle of all that success, he made a choice that reflected many of his contradictions. He once was accepted into the seminary. During his sophomore year, he signed up to be in the officer program in the Marines. So that we could maybe stop there if that's a good enough introduction from his childhood.
Let's go to Mike Bergner, one of his teammates from that National Championship 66 team. Tell me a little bit about Ron. I mean, actually, it goes even beyond the 66 team. It goes back to the old Father Lang's gym behind the Golden Dome.
Yeah, Father Lang was the icon strength coach at Notre Dame at the time. And at that time period in 64 and actually up until the 70s, there were no strength programs at the major universities. But Father Lang and Notre Dame did have a strength training program. And Parsegian would send a lot of the football players down to the weight room. And that's where I met Ronnie initially, was in the weight room at Father Lang's. And he was a hard charging, very strong young man. And we kind of just flowed to him because he seemed to know what he was doing. And with the tutelage of Ron and Father Lang, we became much stronger and hopefully much better football players.
Is there some kind of a path here, a consistency that he was a weightlifter, he was a football player, and he ends up in the Marines? Was that kind of the natural competitive spirit of Ron?
Oh, yeah. No, anybody that worked out at Father Lang's and was coached by Eric Parseghian at Notre Dame, it was a natural for somebody to go into the Marine Corps, it seemed. I mean, it just, they all worked they all worked together in that toughness and that dedication and hard work. Father Lang instilled in that in us, as well as Eric Parseghian, and Ron was a natural at it. So we just kind of followed Ronnie's footsteps as in the weight room.
Okay. Paul, now you weren't a member of the football team and you weren't from the St. Joe's South Bend Rat Pack. But, you would think someone like Ron would have stuck close to those guys and nobody else, but quite the opposite. He said he was really one of the more outgoing guys on campus.
Everybody in our class knew Ron Jeziorski. He was just a sweet soul. He was friendly to everybody. He was a sensitive guy, and he hung out with a lot of different. Everybody knew him. It's just all I could say. He was a very popular, very sensitive guy.
Now, Jeff said he came from kind of a tough background in South Bend, maybe unlike a lot of the other Notre Dame students. Was it tough for him to adjust to that?
I got that he wasn't pretentious in any form whatsoever. So he was very down to earth. You wouldn't even know he was an athlete. He was self-deprecating in many cases. He walked around like he said, I'm just a dumb jock, and but he wasn't. He was a really smart kid, and he was immensely popular with our classmates.
So from South Bend, he ends up in Quantico, Virginia for Marine officers training in '67 and quite directly gets sent to Vietnam and gets sent to the very heavily contested I Corps region just south of the DMZ near Da Nang and Khe Sanh, the Rock Pile, Camp Carroll, named after another Notre Dame graduate who earned a Navy Cross defending that hill. And one of the classmates of Ron's at the basic school for the Marine training is Norm Hatke.
Both of us and then most of our platoon, Charlie, it's actually Charlie Company at Quantico, went immediately or pretty quickly thereafter to Vietnam in one form or another. And most of us, including me, by the way, I'm wearing my jungle utilities in honor of Ron. Most of us were wounded, or many of us were wounded, and a number were killed, including me. And Ron was wounded twice, I believe, but he told me a funny story once. We had a reunion in 1990, and he was the head of the reunion telling some of these stories. He was wounded and he was laying on the ground. And as you know, Ron was a rather robust person, and especially with a flak jacket on. And two of his young platoon members were hiding behind him during the firefight. And he laughed at that and thought it was pretty funny. But of course, when you're in the middle of things and things are shooting at you and people, he probably wasn't as funny as he thought.
It took nearly a day to get a medevac to get him out and back to a hospital ship in Da Nang. Jeff, bring us up today on this extraordinary reunion he had once he got to the hospital ship off the coast of Da Nang.
It was a story that actually Coach encouraged him to write because he had talked about it, not frequently, but I think that a letter he received provoked him to open up more about his time in the service. So Paul McIntosh was a classmate and was recruited by the same officer into the Marines. And so as my dad lay there, as the story goes, on the bed, he hears someone talking in the background about who's this Ron Jeziorski from South Bend. And the gentleman comes up and he reintroduces himself as Dr. Connaughton and from South Bend. And my dad just was blown away. He said, here I am, thousands of miles away, wounded, and the community's still here surrounding me and caring for me. And then that's when he gave him the sobering news that his classmate, Paul McIntosh, said, heck yeah, I know Paul. We got recruited together. Well, he had been severely wounded and almost died. And so after some time, Pops was able to get up, and from his wounds, he was wounded shrapnel in the back. So by the time he could get up and walk, he went and saw Paulie. And it was one of the examples where my dad at one time had questioned faith. This is one where he said, this is where it made me, really believe in God, because Paul said, Ron, God must have put you there, because when I saw you, I knew there was, paraphrasing, I knew there was a reason to live.
Mike Bergner, Ron wasn't the only member of the championship 66 team that was wounded in Vietnam. You had another teammate who was also wounded, strange, just almost a couple of months before Ron was wounded.
Yeah, Rocky Blyer. Yeah, Rocky was wounded, 2 or 3 months after that, I believe, yeah.
Do you always think there's been a connection between Notre Dame football and veterans? I mean, you go back to Frank Leahy in '47 when he served in the Army, and I think half the football team went on to serve in the military.
Well, Notre Dame is it's a warrior institution. I mean, I'm sitting here in cold chills just thinking about it right now. But, when we were there, there was no females they were all at St. Joe's nursing school, right? So the guys, we formed a bond. And, I mean, that bond, to me, is one of warriorhood. And, being coached by Ara Parsegian and Father Lang and being Ron's good friend and Rocky and all the warriors that have come out of Notre Dame, I think it's a natural fit. And we were very blessed to be raised there at that time period, I believe.
And Mike, your story is interesting as well. You signed up for the Marines 3 times, got honorably discharged from the Marines 3 times. How do you pull that off?
It's called knee operations, and now I've got two replaced knees even now. But, no, I was one of the lucky guys. I really was, and at one time I really got upset with all that. But I think now, man, you are blessed, and I carry on in Father Lang's legacy and in a different way, and Ron's legacy. We're all weight room Father Lang boys, and we still have a group called the Flabbers, Father Lang Alumni Board, that get together after all these years. So yeah, I'm blessed. I'm a blessed guy.
Paul Ferguson, you had a chance to hook up with Ron before he came back to South Bend. Another extraordinary reunion, tens of thousands of miles away.
Yeah, I was stationed in Okinawa. I was in Army Artillery, and I was playing basketball on an Army team in some field house, and we called it Sukaran then. But I'm dribbling the ball up the floor, and it's a big field house, and I hear somebody shouting my name. My nickname was Fergie, and I hear somebody yelling Fergie from the stands. And I'm trying to play basketball, and I'm dribbling the ball up the court, and I look around, and we called him, his nickname for us was either Jezzy or Jazzbo. That's what we called Ron. And there's Jazzbo in the stands waving both arms at me. So I'm thinking, what the heck is he doing here? And so we hooked up after the game, and after then, we were probably together on Okinawa 6 to 8 months, but most of the Marines were up at Camp Hansen, and that was a tough place to be because there wasn't a lot of socialization going on up there. So he would come down and hang out with me and all my Army buddies to get a little sense of life. It was a great thing for me, and that's where we kind of reconnected after that. And then we always stayed in touch after that. So that was just a real blessing to me.
Hey, Paul, but you and your Army buddies, were you taking advantage of Ron with that picture? There's something that he's trying to balance on his nose. Talking about loving the guy, an institution and a force of nature. And Mike Bergner and I can share a story there. If I'm not mistaken, Ron recruited both of us into the Marines to different years. How did he recruit you?
Well, he just came back, and he was a year ahead of me, and so he come back. And I don't know if it was with Bob Flynn or not, the pilot that recruited him and I. I don't know if it was with him or not, but Ron was over in that, that's South Dining Hall.
Yeah.
And that's where the Marines would hang out and get us young bucks fired up and ready to go with blue stripe or the red stripe down the blue uniform pants and trousers, I should say. God Almighty, not pants. But anyway, Ron was there, and come on, Burton, you got to sign up. And I'd already signed up once, and then got hurt and got an honorable discharge. So this was the second time that he brought me in, to join the Marine Corps after I'd rehabbed my knee.
Well, that's where I first met him, was in the South Dining Hall. They had set up a table, a little display, and I was coming in for dinner with some of my lacrosse teammates, and he immediately came right up to us and got in our face about, like, you guys want to be on the real team, and and his personality was so infectious and so big, I wasn't even thinking about joining any military, yet alone the Marine Corps. Next thing I know, I'm at Quantico.
Well, that's Ron too, because he'll convince you to do what he says.
Yeah. And Jeff, after his military career, he stayed in California and did something also that's quite surprising to his teammates. Went back to school and ended up being a teacher. Tell us about that side of Ron's life.
That was very interesting, and I'll try to keep it short. But there's a lot of cool tie-ins to Notre Dame in the military. The first was that when he was wounded, he had made a decision then and there, because going into battle, he knew his chances of survival weren't very high, and that was always testimony in the fact that he had a buddy in the ticket office do a big favor for him before he went off to the war, and he got his dad's season ticket. And we had those in the family until 2017. That's the one thing he wanted to give his dad that he could before he went away, to make sure that he could always go to a Notre Dame game. But the second thing that was interesting was that when he did get wounded, it completely changed his life, like so many of you. But he made a decision to never waste another minute of his life. And as I mentioned in his eulogy, from there on, he always had a pen, a paper, and a purpose. He was a teacher and a football coach at St. Anthony's High School in Long Beach. From there, he got his doctorate at the University of San Francisco, and then wrote a book. He wrote a book on the importance of school sports in American society. He was way before his time in that regard, and he knew that with even before the research that the attendance, the behavior, and the grades were going to be better if you participated in something bigger than yourself, if you participated in a team. It didn't matter if it was Glee Club or if it was football.
I think he was also very proud of the person who wrote the foreword to that book. And you shared with me a letter that he received from Father Hesburgh, of all people.
Yeah. That letter kind of hit me in the gut, because it was so sincere, where he said, you guys brought victory out of chaos and, basically made the university proud. And those are big words.
Let me ask you all, where do you think military service fit into the grand scheme of Ron's life? Was he drawn to it out of patriotism or more personal commitment and maybe being part of something larger than himself once again? Paul, what do you think?
That's a great question, Mike. He had a warrior mentality. I forget he told me what his nickname was growing up through high school, but he was a warrior first and foremost. He loved hand-to-hand combat. He loved being in the trenches on the football field. So I think first and foremost, he was a warrior, but it was also then the sense of structure and discipline that the Marines would provide him, because his family life growing up was kind of disheveled. He just didn't have that structure at home. So that's my thought.
Mike, what do you think?
Well, I think Ron embodies the spirit of team. Together everybody accomplishes more. And for him to write a book, suggesting that we get better off in life if we, do that team mentality, I think that fits him to a T. He was a team guy. He was an individual. Marines bring that out in you, but he's also he was a platoon commander. He's a team person. Notre Dame Era Parsesian with the fist. This fist is strong, it's tight, but open. We're separate. And Ronnie embodied that same spirit that was taught to us by guys like Parsesian and Father Lang at Notre Dame. So Ronnie, for me, embodies the spirit of being a massive leader, a guy that leads by example. And he would never ask anybody to do something that he wouldn't do first.
I just have to say that whenever I think of Ron and our time together in the Marine Corps and later on, um, I get a smile on my face. And I also remember he later we communicated, and he sent me the book that he wrote that was basically his doctoral dissertation about the importance of sports in school. And I really enjoyed that book, and it gave me a different idea about those things. I played sports, and most of the guys who were in the Marine Corps, part of what they were looking for as a Marine is you're hale and hearty and a hard charger. If there was ever a hard charger around, it was Ron.
Mike and Paul, you're both veterans. Do you have any special traditions you have for Veterans Day?
Well, for me, I'm just thankful that I'm here and alive, and I can share my personality. I love my military. I love my country, and I want to be able to display that with my behaviors on a day-to-day basis.
And Paul?
I agree. It's my military service was really instrumental in my life, and my kids looked up to it. I wish more of my kids had been in the military to get the leadership skills and the discipline. So I love the military, and I love everything that it represents.
On this Veterans Day, will you think about your classmate and teammate Ron?
All the time.
I think of Ron all the time. He is in the back of my head, and the experiences that we shared at Notre Dame and on the football team he will never be forgotten in my mind.
Well, thank you all for your service, Mike and Paul, and Jeff, for your reflections on Ron Jeziorski, who I think we all agree was a very important person in our lives, and we wanted to share his story on this Veterans Day. Thank you very much.
You all.
Thank you, Mike.
I'm correspondent and former Marine Captain Mike Saray, class of '69, for this edition of God, Country, Notre Dame.